So last time we were here, I was able to sit down with Hutchinson Brown of the Young Fantasy Mind to talk about Eagles and what they should be doing this season. And keeping up with the theme of the series, previewing Dallas's NFC East rivals. Today we got the New York Giants. Many of the same questions I have for New York as I have for Philadelphia, but it's always better to have an insider perspective. So joining me today is a special guest and co-contributor with me at theleaguewinners.com, Mikey Canabo. Mikey, what's up, man?
Hey, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Good, man. Just getting settled in, man. But happy to have you. So tell the people about you. Actually, tell me about you because we hardly ever talk, man. So just tell me a little bit about you, man, your background.
Yeah, man. We met each other in the League Winners. We have a group chat going on, and I'm still meeting people outside of it. Actually, we just met right before we started recording, and I've been, in the NFL fantasy football for over a decade now. I'm 23, so I started like right before high school, and just ever since then, my passion for the sport itself has grown so much due to fantasy football, and it has led me to not only just constantly be analyzing everything more in the game, but to appreciate it more, both offense, defense, whatever it may be. So, and especially now I have a family now, so I have so much more motivation to constantly like work hard and just keep on the grind.
I respect it, man. I definitely respect the hustle. So you said 10 years deep into fantasy.
Of course, yeah.
Oh my gosh, man. My gosh. Well, then tell me about this then. So you're here to talk Giants, and we know how that goes. Just tell me, give us a background. Just tell us how you became a Giants fan, and what was your first intro into Cowboys versus Giants? I'm gonna know it's probably one game that I hate to talk about, but go ahead and tell me.
Yeah, so I grew up, spent about first 8 to 10 years of my life and growing up in Brooklyn with my family. So I'm a New York native. My father's a New York native, growing up in Brooklyn until we moved out. He was about like in his 30s, and he is a huge New York sports fan. So I kind of just followed suit because it was always on TV growing up. And when I kind of came into my own in sports in my early teen years, it's, I started watching games more, started, tagging along and actually paying attention instead of kind of just having it on in the background. So just kind of very naturally just became a New York sports fan along with the Giants and a few other teams. And as far as Giants versus Cowboys, the one, everybody talks about, at least for people my age, is, the one with the Odell catch, the one-handed catch. And so that was what year was that? 2015, 2016,
14.
about 14. Yeah,
Yeah.
even earlier. And so that was really when I realized how much of a rivalry we had, because for just a catch to explode like that in a game is something else. Because people make one-handed catches all day, every day, every game, there's a one-handed catch. But for something like that to happen in a rivalry game, to explode and become mainstream and become an iconic play in NFL history, is when I really latched on to the Giants as a team, and especially the Giants-Cowboys rivalry.
I'm so glad you didn't say 07. But that's cool. All right.
Yeah,
Man,
I was still a little young then, so that's definitely, I was probably 9-10 years old in 07. So not in my main catalog of Giants history. So you got a little lucky with that one.
For sure. All right, man. So here's the rundown. So I'm going to ask you some questions about the Giants and things that I think are question marks for this season. Maybe you can clarify, and maybe just tell me it's not as bad as I think. Cool?
Yeah, sounds great. Let's get started, bro.
All right. So when I did Philly with Hutch last episode, I talked about the defense first, then I circled back to the offense. We can finish out with a bang. Sounds the same. So sound good to you, right?
Sounds good to me.
All right. So first question that I have for you. So I'm going to skip the interior D linemen because I think they're stout. I think Leo Williams, Dexter Lawrence. Just tell me about the edge rushers, though, because that's where I have question marks. I know about Lorenzo Carter, and he's been hurt, but tell me about your edge rushers on the outside. Who's going to create pressure from the outside?
Yeah, I mean, Carter's, you said it yourself, he's pretty much almost always hurt. He's an okay to average player. I really love O'Shane Zimenez. He's a young guy who can come off the edge with speed, but I think he hasn't found his groove yet. And hopefully he can find it this year or next year, because our second round draft pick, Azeez Ojulari, he's coming for heads, man. I know a clip went around Twitter for a bit of him beating Mekhi Becton on a snap, and Mekhi Becton has like 120 pounds on him. So to show that kind of speed in a preseason game is really enlightening, because we haven't had a great edge rusher in years. So I know there are a lot of knee issues coming in with Ojulari coming into the draft, but I really think he's faded out of that, and he's going to be a star player and probably one of the steals of the draft as well.
High praise. That's some high praise, but that's why you're here. Sell me some more. All right. So inside linebackers, we know all about Blake Martinez, the numbers, the statistics. Made a great play tonight, actually. But outside of him, at the inside linebacker, who should I be looking at? Who's the guy that you think is the partner to him, or the running mate for Blake Martinez?
Yeah, like you said, Blake Martinez, tackle machine. The numbers don't lie. I really think you need to be looking at Tay Crowder. My go-to pick might be Ryan Anderson. He's up and coming, but he just got suspended for a few games, 6 games to be exact. So we'll keep him off topic. But Tay Crowder, he's definitely a guy with unforeseen talent. Definitely, not a great linebacker, or more people would know who he is, but he definitely has to track down the player. He has ball speed. He's pretty decent in coverage. So as your second inside linebacker and kind of the wingman to Blake Martinez can really focus on just tackling and wrapping people up. And Tay Crowder can kind of be like the Robin to the Batman, and kind of be there for support, drop back in coverage a little bit. And if you have a guy like Zeke, who is hard to bring down, he can always wrap up from above while Blake Martinez is driving through the legs.
Okay. Now, with your defense, what I think is the strongest part of your defense, to me at least, they earned my respect last year with the back half, the secondary. We know the names. We know Logan Ryan. I know James Bradbury, who I think is a very, albeit a Pro Bowler, a very slept-on player. And, of course, 100%. The Joe Peppers. But just tell me how you feel about the addition of Adoree Jackson. If you can just kind of branch off more too, then, along with Adoree Jackson, as a whole, just give me a rating of your whole free agent class on defense. Like, what do you think about those guys with Jackson together? Like, give me a feel for them.
I think our secondary is really, really slept on. Probably one of the best in the league. I would say top 5, definitely a top 7 secondary in the league. When you add Adoree Jackson, we were kind of scrambling for a CB2 outside of James Bradbury. And when you add Adoree Jackson, who is an outside playmaker, he is dealing with a bit of an ankle injury right now. But he should be good for week 1, if not week 2. So having Adoree Jackson on the other side of James Bradbury, and then you add in guys like Logan Ryan and Julian Love, who can play in the slot, Darnay Holmes, who's a really up-and-coming young player as well. It just allows for all bases covered on the defensive side in the secondary. So no one's really going to be able to go over the top. It's going to be really hard to really throw the ball on us. So we don't have to worry about stacking the box and having a ball going over the top, because you have second-year player Xavier McKinney as well, who, if it wasn't for Logan Ryan, would definitely be getting the starting nod at free safety right now. And when Logan Ryan plays in the slot, you're going to be seeing a lot of blitzes from McKinney. You're going to be seeing a lot of sub linebacker from McKinney. He's that good of a ball player. You can move him all around the defense. So we have a really stout secondary, and with even more names that I didn't mention, like Aaron Robinson being drafted in the 3rd round, just for the next 5 to 7 years, look out, because you're not going to be able to throw the ball on us.
So, okay. All right. Scary times, man. Some scary times. Okay.
Definitely.
So I think you covered everybody, but I kind of want to ask this question, but I think you said a lot of names. Give me one guy that we don't know about today, Cowboys fans at least, so you guys listening out there. Give me one guy that we don't know today, but we're going to know his name by the end of the season.
I think one of the guys I mentioned, Darnay Holmes, he's our CB3 right now. If Adoree Jackson's missed his time, he's the CB2. And he's a playmaker. He's a bit more of a slot cornerback. So you'll be seeing him on, possibly CeeDee Lamb. So 2 young guys up and coming. CeeDee Lamb's a great player, and that would be a fantastic matchup. So, I have to speak it into existence. CeeDee Lamb's a great player. I might have to give him the nod over Holmes, definitely. I don't think there's, denying that. But with the players that we have, our CB5 is a name of Darius Williams, who, if Adoree Jackson went out, he's going to be the main outside guy. And people really need to look out for his hands because he's going to get his hands on the ball. He's going to get 2 to 3 interceptions this year as well. So people are going to try to throw to him when he's on the field because they don't know who he is. But when he's deflecting passes and picking you off, you're going to remember it for the next game.
So you may name one more time.
Rodarius Williams, CB5 on the Giants depth chart.
Rolls around the tongue. Rodarius Williams. All right, guys. Pay attention. All right, Mike. So far, that's all that I got for defense. So I'm saving all my good questions from here on out. All right?
Of course.
All right. So how involved should I expect Kadarius Toney to be this season? Been very quiet about him.
I think the quietness is for a reason. I love Kadarius Toney. I think it really seemed like we wanted Devonta Smith in the draft, but clearly the Eagles traded up a pick and they got him, so we traded back. And I like Toney as a first-round talent. They called him the next human joystick in college. He doesn't drop the ball at all. And I know the human joystick is high praise, but he might be the fastest player on the team now with Kadarius Toney and Saquon Barkley. So how involved he's going to be, it's a little iffy to say. We got a group of pass catchers that we all know the names of. Kenny Golladay dealing with the hamstring injury, but he's still a great over-the-top player. Evan Ingram, he was like 4th or 5th in tight end targets last year with 109. I mean, Sterling Shepard is a great slot weapon. Darius Slayton, he's got the burners. He was a 5th-round pick a couple years ago that people really weren't expecting. So there's a lot of guys, and even as a first-round player, Kadarius Toney's still a rookie. He has to keep his dues, make his amends. He's missed a lot of time in training camp. I believe he had like a death in the family. He was on the COVID list, unresolved contract issues, and then a minor like foot injury because he had a bad cleat on. So he missed a lot of time over the summer for just really strange, unforeseen reasons. So I think that's definitely going to affect him the first half of the year. But look for my hot take right now. Look for Sterling Shepard to be traded this year. His dead cap goes down from 10 million to 4 million next year. And with this wide receiver group and drafting Toney in the first round, who plays in the slot, you're going to have Sterling Shepard there taking up a lot of your cap. So instead of letting Sterling Shepard stay on the team and then just to cut him next year, why not get something for him? Even if it's like a 5th-round pick, a 4th-round pick. So my hot take right now for the Giants is look for Sterling Shepard to be traded before the deadline because you're going to have Toney taking over in the second half of the year once he gets more acclimated to the offense.
So you actually took my next question from under me because I thought all these additions, like you mentioned a lot of additions at the receiver spot.
Yep.
I thought the odd man out would have been Slayton, but you're saying now the odd man out is going to be Sterling Shepard.
Yes, and
wow.
I totally understand why you may think Slayton, but he's a 5th-round pick. His contract was only like $2.5 million, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So his dead cap is like $115,000. If the Giants wanted to cut him, he would have been cut already because it don't cost them almost nothing to get rid of him. So they obviously like him if he's still here. So when you have Sterling Shepard, who has, I believe it's the 4th or 5th biggest cap hit on the team right now, and when his dead cap drops to $4 million after this year, instead of just cutting him, why not try to trade him and get something for him? Something is better than nothing. I'll take a 4th, 5th-round pick, a day 3 pick if we have to. So when Kadarius Toney is going to be taking over in the second half of the year in the slot, Shep is going to see so little work at that point unless they just run 4 receiver sets all the time. So then you have to factor in Saquon Barkley getting targets, Evan Ingram getting targets, Daniel Jones throwing the ball deep to Golladay. So the slot receiver isn't really going to be seen much at all. The slot receiver might be the 4th target on the team.
Excess.
Yeah, there's a lot of excess baggage at the wide receiver room right now. So I think we keep Slayton to play out on the other side of Golladay. And, my take is look for Shepard to be moved before the trade deadline so Kadarius Toney can shine second half of the year.
You got to put that on the website. Definitely have to put that in print for sure. For sure.
That's definitely gonna be the next article out. Then gonna have to put that into some words, even if it's short. Gotta let people know what's going on with the Giants.
Free promo right there. All right. So from outside to inside, just with the offensive line, are they as bad as everyone says?
Yes.
Tell me more. Tell me more.
I hate to say it, but Nate Solder was great. We'll start with it. Nate Solder was great in New England. He's dealt with a lot of off the field issues, some family things going on, whatever it may be, some injury here and there. But he's clearly not where he was in New England 3 years ago. So I think he's just eating up a lot of cap to be our second string right tackle to Matt Part right now, who is atop the depth chart. And he's a good player. I think he can really grow to be a good player, but as of right now, that he still has a lot of technique issues. He needs to work on his footwork and his hands because let's talk about him again in 2 years, because I think he can be a really good player, but as of right now, I think he's just going to get beat too many times. He's getting thrown into a starting role, I think, a little too soon. I wish Nate Solder could hold it up his ground still, but I just don't think he's viable. I wish we can cut him, if I'm being honest. He's taking up so much cap, just sit on the bench for like the last 2 years. So, and then speaking of the tackle position, you have Andrew Thomas on the other side, who didn't have the best rookie year. You know, there were so many tackles that went in the top 15 in the 2020 draft. We took the highest one, and he played the worst out of all of them. So I'm hoping instead of a sophomore slump, he can take a leap in his second year, and I'm looking for better play from him. I don't really think you can go any more down than he had last year. He's a great tackle. He's kind of a do-it-all guy, not great at one thing, but good at everything. So look for him to step it up. Will Hernandez also had a career bad year, so there's also not much room to go down again.
What's wrong with him, though? But like, what? So you stole my next question. You took it from me. But I want to talk about him specifically. Yeah. Sure. See, and so you guys listening, we do not trade show sheets. I do not give the questions prior. So if you're reading my mind, man, that's just synergy right there.
There it is. Let's talk about Hernandez.
What is wrong with him? What is the problem with Will Hernandez?
I think he's a really good player. He is definitely a top 15 guard in the league, I'd say. Probably at 15. He's right there in the middle. But I just think he has so much weight on his shoulders. I think it's a mental thing. I think it really is, because he had a really good rookie year, and he's been on a slow decline because we've had so many injuries on the offense side of the ball that he's really been our only good lineman for like the last 3 years. So to have all that weight on your shoulders, I just think it's getting to him, and it's affecting his physical play as well. So that's why I'm really hoping guys like Matt Part and Andrew Thomas, who are on the side of him, can really step it up, because the offensive line needs to be cohesive. They need to work as a group. And when they're not working as a group, even when you have one good guy in Will Hernandez, he's going to play poorly. So I really just think it's a mental thing on that part. He hasn't really dealt with many injuries and whatnot. I think his feet are fine. He's got big hands. He's got a big body. There's no reason he shouldn't be able to guard anybody in the league, but his guy's got to help him out. So I think it's a huge mental thing when it comes to Hernandez.
And kind of circling back to the tackles for me, and I'm an observer. I'm a third-party observer, being a Cowboys fan. Yep. With Pert, is it so much that he's not matured into his natural body? And then I watched the game today with New England, and I heard Carl Banks talking about it on the broadcast a lot, saying that with Thomas, it's technical stance, placement, hand placement, I should say. Is that really what it is? Is with Thomas, is it as simple as his technique? And with Pert, is it as simple as he's just not physically mature enough to play? Is that kind of what's going on?
I think that's pretty much spot on. Like I said, I wish Solder was still, playing even at an average level for another year or two, because Matt Pert's just not there yet. Like I said, let's talk about him in a couple years, because I think he'll really be able to shine then. He's just not mature enough. He hasn't had the playing time in order to understand what it's like to play as a right tackle. And as far as Andrew Thomas, like I said, he's not great at one thing. He's good at a lot. He's average at a lot. So he needs to refine his technique, get great at his footwork, get great at using his hands and not holding as much. Because if he can become great in his technique instead of just good or average, that's really going to boost play, and then it travels across the offensive line. If Andrew Thomas can become great, he could then mentor Matt Pert, even though they were in the same draft class. If Nate Solder can just give some type of tips or advice to Matt Pert, he can really mature at a faster pace. So I think the broadcasting was on point during the game tonight, because those are just the two fundamental things that they both need to work on.
All right, so I'm saving him for now, but I think it's a good time to talk about him. So Kenny Golladay just for Kenny Golladay, let's talk about what he means to the Giants as a signing. And I wrote this down thinking about this, but is Kenny Golladay Plaxico 2.0? Maybe before your time, though, as I'm learning, but is it like that?
I remember Plaxico a lot. The name just, it sticks with everybody in the NFL community. So even though I was young, I definitely watched highlights that I may have missed, and definitely watched the Super Bowl with his game-winning catch as well. So I think Kenny Golladay is a type of Plaxico. I wouldn't say Plaxico 2.0, but just that big body. He's not really getting a lot of separation, but he's just bigger than everybody else, than almost every DB on the field, that if the ball is in the air, there's a greater than 70% chance that they land in his hands. So having that big body, especially in the back of the end zone, because we don't have, that huge tight end that most teams do, where, you have your Travis Kelce's and George Kittles and Darren Wallers who catch 10 passes a game, but the majority of the NFL, their tight ends are these big body guys who catch 2 to 3 passes a game, and they're really just for the red zone. We have Evan Ingram, who's basically just a receiver and a kind of a bit bigger body. He's really athletic, but he's not a red zone kind of guy. He's not going to body somebody out in the corner of the end zone to catch, 10 to 12 touchdowns a year. So that's what Kenny Golladay is going to do. So he is the Plaxico Burress type, a little bit stronger than Burress. Burress was a little on the smaller side for his height, but he was quick too, with big hands, which is why he was still a deep threat in the end zone. So Kenny Golladay being a bit of a bruiser, jump ball guy, I hope if he can stay healthy, he's going to help Daniel Jones excel a little bit more in his third year than he did the last 2 years.
You mentioned him. I had no preparation to talk about Evan Ingram, but where are you with Evan Ingram right now? And because I know it's time to talk about contracts and money, what exactly are the Giants going to do with Evan Ingram?
I think we'll eventually re-sign him, just because I think the trio of Golladay, Barkley, Ingram is going to stay. We're already trying to say we're not starting Barkley because we want to save him long term. Kenny Galladay's on a 4-year deal, and I believe that we're going to be signing Evan Ingram sooner rather than later, because like I said, he had the 4th or 5th most targets among the tight end position last year. He's a receiver in a tight end's body. He's super athletic, one of the most athletic guys in the NFL probably. And if you look back to his rookie year, he had the best rookie year by a tight end of pretty much all time. He was fantastic. 2018 and 2019, he was on pace to be better. He just got hurt those 2 years. He only played 6 games in 2018 and 8 in 2019. But obviously he didn't play a full season, so we will never know what happened. But if you take the stats and spread them out over 16 games, they would have been better than his rookie year. And then in 2020, the entire offense is pretty much hurt. Saquon is gone. We really don't have a true number one receiver. Sterling Shepard and Darius Slayton are trading places, getting hurt as well. So Evan Ingram's your only guy. And so it's pretty much stack the box and double team Evan Ingram. So he had a bunch of targets, but it was hard for him to get open even with that freak athlete body. So I think he takes a step forward in year 5, earns himself a contract. Now, he's not going to be the best tight end in the league, no doubt. But to look at it from a fantasy football perspective, I'm a lot higher than most on Evan Ingram, and I actually have him as my tight end 7 on the year as of right now. Things could change. I'm redoing stats, injuries pop up, whatever it may be, other guys step up. So maybe he falls a little bit. Maybe he climbs one spot. I don't see him climbing higher than tight end 6 at this point. I think tight end 7, tight end 8 range is pretty good for him. But when you're getting that many targets, it's really hard to not produce at some point. So look for about 60 catches, 750 yards, and he can push for 6 touchdowns if needed. Obviously, we have Kenny Galladay. We talked about his red zone ability before, but with production like with a target share like that, the production's got to come at some point.
And then you're still confident to re him up, though.
Yeah,
seems like it's a lot we haven't seen yet.
There is a lot we haven't seen yet because he spent most of his career hurt at this point. And it's like, do you really want to re-up this guy? I think
that's the question.
He's playing for the contract this year. And with the way I project him, he's going to earn it. Now, obviously, none of us have a crystal ball. We can't tell the future if he gets hurt again. If, maybe the target share goes from 100 targets down to 70 because we have all these playmakers on the outside as well. Who knows? So he's going to demand a lot of money, I'll tell you that. So his play this year is going to determine whether or not he's worth it. Now, is he going to be a top tight end paid? Probably not, but he'll be up there in the top 10 paid tight ends.
How does Kyle Rudolph factor into that? Doesn't Rudolph in some way influence his target share or production? I know we're not here to talk fantasy, but just from a perspective here, wouldn't that limit his usage?
I think it will. Kyle Rudolph is the end zone guy. He's there to block. He's there to, be found in the end zone, like most teams' tight ends are. But again, Evan Ingram's is the between 20s guy. He's going to catch the 10-yard out and take it for 30 more yards. He's a receiver in a tight end's body. I know I keep saying that, but it's true. He's that athletic. He's going to high point the ball and then take it 20 more yards. His yards after catch is great. His athletic ability to either run someone over or get around them. So I think Kyle Rudolph is going to be there for blocking ability and getting to the back of the end zone, looking at maybe 3 to 5 targets a game, probably nearing the 3 side. Look for Evan Ingram to get another 100 targets this year and be between the 20s guy. Not so many touchdowns, but the yards are going to be there as well.
Okay. So shifting gears to a shifty player, let's talk about Saquon Barkley. Just how concerned or what do you expect out of him coming off an ACL injury? What with Barkley should we be looking at? Do we see limited mobility? Do we see anything in his head maybe? Maybe he's hesitant. What do you think Barkley actually does ultimately? From a just production standpoint, what do you think happens here?
I think he's slow the first few weeks. If we remember from a few years ago, he had a high ankle sprain and he was only out for 4 weeks, but he was still slow getting back the next few weeks. He didn't really step up until about week 11 or 12. I think it's going to be a similar thing. Obviously, ACL is way more severe than a high ankle sprain. So look for weeks 1 through 4, pretty much all of September for it to be a slow start. Instead of 20 to 25 touches a game, look for 10 to 15. Look for them to work in Devontae Booker. Kadarius Toney can take end arounds as well. Daniel Jones is pretty mobile. Look for some maybe set up scrambles for him. So, but as far as a production standpoint, I still see Saquon Barkley getting over 1,000 yards rushing. He's too elite to not produce. Obviously, our offensive line is bad, but look at someone like Najee Harris, who everyone is expecting him to be great this year, which he will be. The Steelers' offensive line is one of the worst in the league right now. So we're saying that for Najee Harris. Obviously, he's not coming off an ACL injury, but by week 6, I expect Saquon Barkley to be in full form. And the mental aspect, like you talked about, he just needs to get hit once. And I think that speaks for a lot of NFL players. When you come back from a really bad injury, you just need one hit to make sure that knee holds up. And when it does, all that mental fog will clear away and he'll be good to go. And I see him in October returning to form and just taking a league by storm once again.
So for this whole thing throughout, I tried to be as objective as possible. So I will put on the Homer hat backwards for this section here. When it comes to Barkley, right? And I critiqued him for this. I think that he leaves yards on the field. I think he takes the long route down the field, going east and west versus north and south. But we talk about a guy being right and being right in his own mind. Because he's missed so much time away from the field, I think his biggest Achilles heel, no leg joke intended here, is pass blocking. How do you improve as a pass blocker without being present? And I mean, are we over-exaggerating the pass block? I think that we're not. I think, we found the one thing that he does poorly is just not being able to pass block. Do you think that's a major concern, a major red flag? Do you think that actually weighs into their decision as far as to play him on third down also? So just talk about the blocking aspect and how do you feel as a Giants fan with him blocking?
Yeah, definitely. I don't think it's a major concern, but it definitely is a concern that needs to be spoken about because he wasn't a great pass blocker before the injury, and now he's missed so much time. So the mental aspect of it, the physical aspect of it, he probably won't be the workhorse that we once had. And he will play a decent amount of third downs because his pass catching ability is great. But, you might see a lot of 2 HB sets. You might have Devontae Booker in there as well to pass block. You might have a fullback in there to pass block because it's really hard to take someone that talented off the field, but we also have trouble relying on him as well. So when it comes to pass blocking, we really need to make sure that we have as many healthy guys as possible because I don't think Saquon's going to hold up when it comes to pass blocking.
So with Barkley, and again, as a fan of the Cowboys, I will look at the side of how it favors us, but how it doesn't favor us is I think in his right mind, he's still a productive, explosive player. Whether he takes the long route to the end zone or not, he's explosive when healthy. Talking about running backs we talk about running backs in fantasy all the time, valuation, the usage, but let's talk about money with Barkley, okay? If Barkley produces to what you think he can do, to what I'm scared he might do you think they say, hey, look, Saquon, here's a contract of $100 million. Do you think they pay him the big bucks if he's back and looks like himself?
I think they do because you rarely find these once in a generation running backs. And I think he warranted the number 2 pick in the 2018 draft. So as far as the money goes, I think if he holds up and he produces just like he has back in his rookie year and every other year, that you'll see the money come. You'll see, 90, 100, $110 million. I think he'll probably end up being the highest paid running back because that's just how the market is. Even, you have guys like Christian McCaffrey, Dalvin Cook, Derrick Henry, Alvin Kamara, who definitely have earned their contracts 100%. But with the way the market is, Saquon's the last one of them to get paid. He's going to be the highest paid. So, and it's just going to keep going. It's just going to keep going up,
Yeah.
So you have guys like Najee Harris, who in 4 years might be close to $120-130 million contract. It's just going to keep going up, and Saquon's going to get his money unless there's another injury, which I pray to God there's not. Saquon's going to get his money.
All right. So now here's the big blue elephant in the room. Is Daniel Jones salvageable?
I believe he's salvageable, and his ceiling is a mediocre quarterback, and that's still not what I want. He's salvageable to be the next Teddy Bridgewater, if that makes sense. And that's just not going to win you playoff games and Super Bowls. I think he's a bit mobile, which is always great, but at the same time, he fumbles the ball, it seems like 10 times a game, which is obviously an exaggeration, but there's just way too many turnovers. And I really think he needs to have like a 30 touchdown, 10 interception year with under 5 fumbles in order to earn a second contract, or else we'll be looking at a quarterback in the top 7 next year, because he is salvageable, but at the same time, it's just really hard to rely on him. And he's even been dealing with a few of his own injuries the last couple of years. So how do you really rely on a guy who's going to turn the ball over most of the time?
I can't argue with it. I really can't. I think that's the thing. And we talk about money with Barkley. That's the thing with quarterbacks. Quarterbacks cost money. So the investment 100%. Of whatever it might be, $35, $40 million, whatever the market says, I don't think there's any way you can do it. So you're already kind of in the boat of, we have to look forward anyway. We have to look at somebody else no matter what happens.
100%. Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Okay. So from players back to the guys away from the field. So Jason Garrett. Oh, no question. Just tell me about him. I don't have a question.
Jason Garrett, I wish we were to have someone different. Now, I like Jason Garrett. He's okay at offensive play calling. But again, he's just another guy where it's like, obviously you've dealt with him with Dallas for so long. How many years were you guys explosive, but still went 8-8? Now, obviously, that had a lot to do with your defense, and he was obviously the head coach at the time, so he kind of plays a little bit of both, but he's an offensive-minded guy. So how many years did the Cowboys go 8-8 and just couldn't get it done in the playoffs when they did make it, you know? Now, obviously, you had a few great seasons, 13-3, you know, win a playoff game here or there, I think once maybe. And, you know, I can't really talk too much smack because the Giants haven't made the playoffs in years. But if the offense doesn't click this year, it's going to be really hard to keep this almost entire coaching staff. Now, I like Joe Judge. I want to give him a few more years. And I like our defensive coordinator in Patrick Graham.
Love him.
So I think he's fantastic. But as far as Jason Garrett goes, if the offense doesn't click this year, we'll be searching for a new guy next year.
I think when it comes to Garrett, and like I said, I try to ride the objective side of this. But I think for us as Cowboys fans, it was the biggest I told you so moment, and we knew exactly what you were getting. For me, watching what they run, it seems pretty unimaginative. It's very predictable. It's very safe.
Yep.
Now, Jones might have something to do with that. Jones being the quarterback who, like you said, fumbles the ball a lot. Maybe they try to protect him with shorter, intermediate plays. But I think we were just happy to be right as Cowboys fans. And I think your best valuation of the coach, is not as a coordinator or a strategist, but more so maybe an evaluator of players. You know, offensive linemen, seem to work well with him. So under his watch, maybe he's a better front office guy. And that's what his family lineage is, of coaches and personnel people. But let's talk about Joe Judge. Joe Judge is the guy for me. He gets so much love universally, and I cannot understand why. I don't get it. They went 6-10. They weren't great either. Why does he get so much love around the NFL? And is this thing I'm seeing with him for real? Because I just feel like he's another off the assembly line Patriots disciple that's going to get washed in about 2-3 years. Just kind of talk about Joe Judge, the guy, his methods. And actually, man, because this is a big thing for me, what do you make of these player retirements? What does that say about Joe Judge? Just talk about that for a second.
I think, and you kind of touched on it, the main reason that people love Joe Judge is because he comes from the Belichick tree. And I think the atmosphere is the community just wants someone to make it from that tree so bad. Because Josh McDaniels, how many times has he gone back to the Patriots as the OC instead of looking for a head coach job? Matt Patricia didn't work out, So I think the community is just really looking for someone to be the next Belichick, and they're projecting that onto Joe Judge. Now he definitely has a very similar style. Went from the coaching. Something that hit big in the news was that they had the joint practices, the Giants and the Patriots, and Joe Judge made his players run, and then Belichick followed suit. So they have a very similar coaching style as well. So there's a lot of people hoping that he is the next big guy, but I like him and I hope he succeeds, especially as a Giants fan, but I don't see where all this love is coming from after one really poor year of coaching.
All right. So from Joe Judge and the players on the field, so let's go from the players on the field to the people upstairs. Should this be David Gettleman's last chance? Is this his last chance to make this work? Should it be? He's
definitely on the hot seat because his drafting has been questionable. A lot of people, I think Saquon Barkley in 2018, he was warranted the pick for Saquon Barkley, but I think that year we should have taken a quarterback because the class was too good. We took Daniel Jones at 6 in 2019 when he probably would have fell to us in the second round. And you had guys like Josh Allen and Brian Burns who could have been your top 2 selections as well. So as far as a GM goes, I think he's definitely on the hot seat. And I think he's trying to bring over some type of community of when he was with Cam Newton in Carolina. And he's trying to just salvage those last pieces of that MVP season. And he's trying to pretend that we're not in a rebuild is basically what I'm trying to say. When we kind of just need to strip everything down. We should have taken a quarterback in 2018, like I said, but we took Saquon Barkley, and from there we should have just stripped everything down and built around him. And I feel like we failed to do that by reaching so far with Daniel Jones, who's an okay, serviceable quarterback at the best. So I think he's definitely on the hot seat, and it's almost so hard to predict where to go from here and what we're going to do next.
So in your eyes, is the most suitable move, assuming that it doesn't work out, is get rid of all three, the trio, that being Jones, I mean, throw Garrett in there too, but Jones, Judge, Garrett, Gettleman, toss them all out.
Yeah, I think at a certain point, I think Joe Judge you can let go for a couple more years, see if he can build something himself. But Jason Garrett and Dave Gettleman are definitely on the hot seat this year. And if something doesn't get going, at least with the offensive side of the ball, Jason Garrett's gone. I think Dave Gettleman's gone as well.
All right, so talking about the Giants overall, for this season, predict their record this season, and also predict their record versus the Cowboys, meaning when they go up with Dallas, are they going to split, are they going to sweep, or lose both?
Overall in the season, I'm going to be looking at another 5 to 6 win season. Look for 5-12 or 6-11. We're just not there yet. And I hope I'm wrong as a Giants fan. So as far as the Cowboys go, I just don't see us outscoring them at all. Your guys' offense is too high powered. Your guys' offense is too good. Your defense has gotten a little bit better. Now our defense is good as well. We just don't have the offense to match. So I think it's going to be 0-2 against the Cowboys, and look for a 5-12 season this year.
Damn. Oh, I'm sorry. And also pick a division winner.
It's a toss-up between football team and the Cowboys, because football team's defense is so strong and they've added some really good offensive pieces, but I think the Cowboys come out on top as well. They're probably, I say 10-7 or 11-6. You guys might get up to a slow start, but I see you guys winning like 5 or 6 games straight in the middle of the year.
Oh, I knew. I just wanted you to say it. That's all. I just wanted to hear
it. You got it out of me. Don't worry, man. You got it out.
All right, Mikey. Hey, man. Great time talking Giants with you. It's great to do it with somebody else that's passionate about their team and just wants to shoot straight and be honest about it, man. So I got to say before we get out of here, I love talking to you about this. We have to do this again, either during the season or some other point in time, but this was a fun time doing this, man.
Definitely got to do this again, especially talking to a friend who is a rival. It's so easy to go back and forth because we both care about the same exact things, just on the opposite side. So we definitely got to do this again at some point in the future.
Facts, man. Facts. But before we get out of here, let everybody know how we can find you on Twitter. We know the website. We know what we do at leaguewinners.com, but how can we find you on Twitter, man?
You can go at Twitter at Mikey Canavo, MikeyCannavo. You'll find my links to my YouTube and Twitch there as well. Definitely trying to get started up on the video podcasting side, just like yourself. So go to my Twitter. You can find the rest of my links there.
Guys, follow this man, subscribe, follow him. But that's all the time that we got. So for my special guest, Mikey Canavo, I'm LP Cruz. Thanks for tuning in. And as always, Cowboys up. Peace.